Right, let's discuss this further. Joining me now is Kevork Almassian. He's the founder of the Syriana Analysis platform. Kevork, a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we just heard there from the Israeli Defense Minister. Now, he says, well, he has instructed the IDF to establish a, quote, sterile buffer zone in southern Syria for his own country's national security. Is this a bit over the top? What do you think he means exactly?
I think what's happening in Syria after the regime change succeeded is for regional countries to have an upper hand over Syria. So they're trying to slice the cake, and they're trying to establish series of zones, including Israel. Israel had long been waiting for this moment, which was expressed by Benjamin Netanyahu, and he posted a video statement celebrating the fall of the Syrian regime, and said that this was a positive result or positive outcome for the national security of Israel. Now, Israel already conquered and annexed the Golan Heights in 1967 to establish the so-called buffer zone with Syria. Now that the Syrian regime has fallen, Israel found an opportunity to expand this so-called buffer zone, and especially to occupy the higher hills in order to have a better position in any future confrontation. However, at the same time, the Israeli occupation forces, they have destroyed most of Syria's strategic stockpile, long-range missiles, air defenses, and also the navy. Therefore, what has happened after the fall of the Syrian regime is the complete annihilation of the Syrian army and any potential for the Syrian army to recover in the hands of the new government. Now, the Israeli government says that those measures are important to counter any future terrorist attacks. But we have to remind our audience that the current militants who occupy Damascus, those are HTS, the offshoot of Al-Qaeda in Syria. And they already have occupied the borders with Syria in the past, in 2013 and 2015, near the borders. And Israel received these fighters in field hospitals in the Golan Heights and gave them medical support, cash, and light weapons. Therefore, I would argue that Israel is in contact with HTS, and the HTS leaders already said that they don't want to antagonize Israel. This is not their priority. Their priority is to take over Syria and establish a new government, which I think is going to be Islamic in its nature.
Well, actually, Kevork, that's brought me nicely to my next question, because you're saying that basically these militant forces are slicing up the country for their own use. You're saying the HTS are probably aligned with Israel. But at the end of the day, the other factions have said nothing about what's going on. And perhaps, where will this take us to in the future? How does Syria really look? Are we really looking at Israel commanding whatever it wants in Syria?
Actually, the victors of this regime change war are Turkey and Israel. And I believe that in Syria, there are going to be different spheres of influence. Turkey is going to have an upper hand over Aleppo, Azaz, Afrin, Idlib, and Homs. We will see Saudi, Emirati, and Jordanian influence over Damascus and Daraa. And Israel will have an upper hand over Suwaida. And we have in the east the Kurds, and supported by the US occupation forces. This is the unfortunate truth that many people were fearful of, and that's why they supported the former President Bashar al-Assad, because they saw him a symbol of the unity of Syria or against foreign interventions. But he also miserably failed now in protecting the national unity of Syria by leaving the country this way to Moscow. And I believe now Syria is a fertile ground for every regional country to establish and achieve its regional and strategic goals. And one of these players is Israel. And Israel long was waiting for this moment. After Egypt joined the peace agreements with the Israeli side, there was no other army. There were only two other armies represented a threat against Israel, were Iraq and Syria, and both of them are already destroyed. And this is part of the Yemen plan, which was spoken and discussed in length in Israel. And I think Israel will thrive more, and it will have an upper hand over the region, especially after the genocide in Gaza. and the killing and the assassinations of the leadership of Hezbollah. And now that Iran is withdrawing from Syria, I think Syria will revolve under the umbrella or the orbit of the US, and Israel will have a high leverage. I just want to make a bold prediction, which I might be wrong, but I believe that between 3 years to 5 years from now, we will see an Israeli flag flying over Damascus, and Israel will have its own embassy, and therefore the new Syria will normalize ties with Israel in the near future.
Well, very interesting indeed, and very bold statements there, Kevork. Well, we'll see how things pan out. I'd like to change gear now slightly. You know, we've heard that several European nations, including Germany, have announced plans to deport Syrians following this fall of Assad's government. In your opinion, do you believe it's safe for them to return?
I'm Syrian. I live in Germany. And I know well this discussion is ongoing since yesterday, and everybody is asking the same question. It would be very interesting to see the position of the German government, because for those who don't know, in the past, the German government tried to deport me to Syria, saying that you're not with the revolution, so go to Syria and Assad could protect you. This was the argument, basically. So now, vice versa, after several years, we see that things have changed, and now Syria is safe for the people who supported the revolution against Assad. And therefore, if anyone has an asylum or a subsidiary protection, legally speaking, under the German law, when the reasons are gone, there has to be a campaign of deportation of the Syrians. Not that I wish that to happen. I'm just saying under German law, there is the reason, when the reason is faded away, that you received an asylum here in Germany, then the government deports you. Will the Syrians go? I rule out that possibility. I think that we have around 1 million Syrian refugees now, and half of them have already have probably passports, German passports, and they have learned the language and they're working, so it would be difficult to deport them. But the rest who haven't worked and haven't learned the language or aren't working and paying taxes, I think it would be very difficult for them to keep the asylum and not to be deported back to Syria.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. We were talking with the AFD leader, or one of the party members, yesterday, and he was saying basically some 50,000 asylum seekers are currently waiting to be processed. But anyway, we'll see how things pan out. We're going to have to leave it there. Pleasure, sir. Kevork Almassian, founder of the Syriana Analysis platform. Thank you for your time.